In the autumn of 1917, the War Office decided that in order to win the war, it was necessary to manufacture mustard gas. Winston Churchill, Minister of Munitions, recognized it as an effective weapon for attacking the enemy and could turn the tide of the war. In World War I, the Germans had used it first against the Canadians and then against the French at the Third Battle of Ypres in 1917. An odourless, viscous liquid, mustard gas caused blistering of the skin and in some cases blindness. Factories were set up across Britain to produce the gas. One location chosen by Lord Kitchener was Avonmouth, where there was plenty of land available, modern docks and rail links. The work was highly secretive. The National Filling Station, number 23 Avonmouth, was known as the HM Factory, Chittening Rd. The work was mainly carried out by women. The men were either fighting in France or running the factories and farms. The local labour force were unaware of the dangerous conditions in the factory. They wanted to be part of the war effort. In recent times, a theatre director came across the derelict site and its past history, and as a result of his research, wrote a play about the workers called Gas Girls. It's a story of how the production of chemical weapons had a marked effect on the health of the employees, who became unwittingly the victims of the gas.
We found out about the mustard gas factory in Avonmouth through a chance reading of an article in the Bristol Evening Post, which talked about the effects on some people walking past the building site, and that a lot of people had been taken ill with breathing problems and nosebleeds. And it transpired that the building site was the site of a mustard gas factory, which intrigued and horrified us because we didn't know there'd ever been a mustard gas factory in Avonmouth, or in fact that Britain made mustard gas in the First World War. We started to think, wouldn't it be important to let people know about this? So we decided to do a play.
Factories all across the country, Manchester, Banbury, Avonmouth.
Make the gas, fill the shells, beat the Hun at his own game.
That was the plan, and nothing was going to stop its success.
It took them some months to work out how to make mustard gas, and there were lots of accidents along the way. Eventually, they worked out and had a successful batch that they could identify as mustard gas, and started to ship the chemical to Chittening. So there's an Avonmouth factory and then a shell filling factory in Chittening, which is just a few miles north of Avonmouth. And there the women started to fill the shells. First of all, progress was quite slow and they only filled 1,000 shells in July, but the demands became increasing on the women and the amount of shells that they were required to produce, becoming many thousands by the time you got to October and November.
Britain's production of mustard gas caused many casualties in the workforce. During the brief time it was in operation at the factory at Avonmouth, it killed 3 people as well as injuring many others. Mustard gas was a very dangerous compound since it would cling to clothing and could survive long periods in liquid form. Workers became contaminated by it when they were cleaning the pipes or machinery in the factory.
Mustard gas, one of the terrible things about it is it wasn't an instant reaction. That sometimes people were touched by mustard gas and didn't react straight away. But what it did do was burn through flesh. When it contacted flesh, it sort of affected, actually what it does, it affects the DNA and breaks it down. We had certain evidence of some people who had mustard gas burns who never actually recovered from that, and that the wound would continue to weep all through their life. In soft tissue like eyes, it could have terrible damage on that, burn out the eyes and make people blind. It caused huge problems with the respiratory system. If you breathed it in, it would literally dissolve your lungs.
He went away, you see. He signed up. He was only just old enough, but he wanted to go, and I wanted him to go. So I waved him off, cheering. And now he's blind. Mustard gas, they said. I just don't know what's going to happen when he comes home. How it might have changed him. How he might not be the same Robert, my Robert. Oh, I just don't know.
The way ACTA works is that we always work with non-professional performers. We work with people from a local community, and they create the play themselves. They use dialogue, they create characters, we feed them. In this case, we fed them the research that we were finding, and gradually we crafted a play with 20 volunteer performers, using all the information we found, which included in the end us going to the National Archives and finding a whole load of what had been top secret documents, which told us a lot about not just the manufacture of the gas and how it was made, and all the different top secret meetings were about this, but also the medical reports which charted the effects, the extremely debilitating and sometimes fatal effects of mustard gas on the women and the girls and the young men who worked in the mustard gas factory.
Compound leaked from pipes. Chemical accidents happened on a daily basis. Safety measures to stop the inhalation of gas were introduced in the form of an elaborate ventilation system. In September 1918, the workers were provided with helmets, overalls and rubber boots to protect them against contamination, but all proved ineffective. Britain did not have the expertise to deal with this toxic chemical. However, towards the end of the war, they did provide the workers with protective clothing treated with diroprene, which was more effective. A hospital was erected on the site to deal with the large number of illnesses caused by the contaminated working conditions. It dealt with 50 to 60 cases a day. The management, in an attempt to stem the high levels of absenteeism due to ill health, offered the workers 1 week off for every 20 days worked. The demand for shells from the war meant that safety standards at the factory were compromised. Of all the mustard gas factories in operation, Avonmouth produced the most yield. By November 1918, the 1,100 workers at Avonmouth had filled over 85,000 munition shells for the Western Front at a terrible cost to their health.
Is there anything I can do? Don't think so. I've seen too much suffering to believe in a kind God anymore.
Because the performers were using their own words and really felt akin to the characters they'd created, the monologues they made were very real, and you really felt like you were listening to someone telling their story. I think when you work with non-professional performers, you get a very real and natural quality which reaches out. It's very much from the heart.
They said he was a deserter. But he wouldn't desert, would he? Not my Sam. There must have been some silly misunderstanding.
What made the play so poignant is that the performers weren't professional performers, but they're just local people who live around Bristol, young people and older people who, if they'd been alive in 1917, 1918, it would have been them who would have been in the mustard gas factories. So there's a real connection with those characters and with that history.
How would anyone know that there was a story to tell? Fly said nothing. So I told him everything that happened, all about us gas girls.